Here's where it all begins, with a whisper no one dares to say out loud. Meghan Markle's life looks like something straight out of a billionaire's fantasy. The palatial homes, the flawless designer outfits, the private jets, the glossy magazine covers. It's the definition of lavish. But when people peek beyond the perfect photos, something just doesn't add up. Her once hyped Netflix deal, silent, the Spotify deal, gone. The brand collaborations, scattered and short-lived, and yet her life hasn't slowed down even for a second. Normally, when deals dry up, so does the luxury. But Meghan's world doesn't follow the usual math. Even when the income dips, the glam never fades. That's when whispers began swirling in the background. Insiders started calling it funding continuity. Sounds elegant, doesn't it? But what it really means is one thing: someone else might be quietly footing the bill. Not out of charity, not out of pity, but for access. And that's the dirty little secret hiding behind those picture-perfect moments. The idea that what we're all seeing might not be self-funded at all. Because once you follow that money trail, it doesn't end in Montecito. It leads somewhere far more powerful. When Meghan married Prince Harry, she believed she was stepping into a life of endless riches, royal allowances, glittering castles, priceless jewels, the whole fairy tale package. But the reality waiting behind those palace gates was anything but a fantasy. See, being royal doesn't automatically make you rich. The castles and estates? They belong to the crown, not the people living inside them. Even Harry's personal fortune, comfortable by normal standards, was mostly from his late mother's inheritance and some modest military pay. The rest? Locked away behind royal walls. According to palace insiders, Meghan figured this out fast. The title she thought would open vaults of gold only opened a door to control. Every expense managed, every move monitored, and Meghan Markle was never built to live by someone else's rules. Behind those elegant palace smiles, she realized what most people don't. Royal power came with strict limits, not endless luxury. While the cameras saw a beaming Duchess, her mind was already strategizing. When the crown couldn't give her what she expected, Meghan changed the game. She stopped playing the princess and started acting like a strategist. If she couldn't own the money, she'd control the image. If she couldn't have the system, she'd learn to work around it. That's when she started studying the room. Who held the real power? Who controlled the narrative? And most importantly, who paid for it? Every dinner party, every gala, every charity event. For everyone else, it was just another glamorous night out. But for Meghan, it was field research. She watched how billionaires moved without ever reaching for a wallet, how they stayed powerful without ever flashing their wealth. She didn't chase the spotlight. She collected access. People close to her say this was the real beginning of Meghan's empire, not some fairy tale, but a meticulously built strategy. If the palace couldn't give her freedom, she'd find it elsewhere. And she already knew exactly where to look, because to understand Meghan's real story, you have to rewind to the years before Harry, before the royal headlines, to the world she was quietly orbiting long before the wedding dress and titles. It all starts in one place: Soho House. For outsiders, it's just an exclusive club for creatives, but insiders, they know it's a gate. A playground for billionaires, investors, producers, and ambitious social climbers who know one thing very well: proximity is power. Meghan wasn't just another actress sipping cocktails in the corner. She was observant, calculated, ambitious. This was her classroom, where she learned how real money moves behind closed doors. Inside that world was one name that kept coming up: Ron Burkle, a billionaire investor often called the Connector. Private jets, political influence, deep ties to royal social circles. Sources say he was one of the first to quietly open doors for Meghan, inviting her to events far beyond her pay grade. Charity galas, glittering yacht weekends, private retreats that cost more than most people make in a year. And here's the key: those trips weren't random, they were introductions. And for Meghan Markle, introductions weren't just nice to have, they were investments. She wasn't chasing headlines anymore, she was studying the men who funded them. By the time Meghan became a familiar face in elite circles, she had already mastered the art of borrowed wealth. When you don't have the jet, you befriend the person who does. When you can't buy the estate, get invited to it. When you can't afford the spotlight, stand next to the person who owns it. This isn't something you learn from a book. It's a survival skill, the ability to exist inside a world you don't yet belong to until eventually you do. Meghan was always there, not necessarily in the headline, but always right beside it. The guest, the friend, the name on the list, no one ever questioned. That's how you learn the rhythm of the upper tier. It's not about owning things, it's about being close enough to power that it starts to feel like your own. Those years were Meghan's quiet apprenticeship. Actresses, moguls, investors, all part of an invisible ecosystem she would later re-enter, not as an outsider, but as a duchess. So when people today scratch their heads and ask, how does she keep living that billionaire lifestyle without billionaire money? The answer doesn't start in California. It starts on those yachts, in those clubs, in those whispered introductions. Long before a royal ring ever touched her finger, that's where her real empire began. Not on ownership, but on access. When Meghan married into the royal family, many thought she left that world behind. But insiders say she didn't. The connections she built before Harry never disappeared. They just faded into the background. Behind the smiles and charity speeches, a quiet system remained. A web of powerful benefactors who could open doors, arrange appearances, smooth transitions. So when Meghan and Harry moved to California, she didn't rebuild her life from scratch. She activated the network she had long prepared. Invitations to private estates, discreet travel arrangements, opportunities that came without contracts, just silent understanding. No paperwork, no press releases, no names in headlines, just continuity. Even her most independent ventures carry the fingerprints of those same invisible financiers who once held open jet doors. This is how modern power works. It wears independence like a costume while influence pays the bills. For Meghan, every photo, every brand launch, every appearance serves a single purpose: visibility. And visibility, that's what draws the money in. The illusion is the product, and Meghan sells it masterfully, because when people believe you don't need help, that's when the help flows most freely. Everything looks self-funded until you look just outside the frame. But that kind of access, it comes with unspoken rules. When your image depends on benefactors, your voice isn't fully your own anymore. Yes, you can speak, loudly even, but only inside the invisible lines drawn by those who keep you afloat. According to people in the know, there are topics she avoids, opinions she softens, moments she lets slide, not because she's afraid, but because she understands exactly what's at stake. When people fund your visibility, they also expect your silence. It's an old, unbreakable bargain. Visibility for loyalty. Keep the brand polished, keep the story inspiring, keep the ties unbroken. That's why every public stumble gets patched up fast. Every controversy is followed by a glittering distraction. Because behind those smiling appearances, there's always someone making sure the bridge she represents, between Hollywood and royalty, between fame and activism, stays intact. She's not fighting to win every single battle. She's fighting to stay valuable to the people who keep her in the game. And that's the most haunting part of it all. Her fortune was never just about the bank balance. It was always about the network. From Soho House to Montecito, her story has been built on one principle: access over ownership, sponsorship over savings, a quiet economy made of introductions, discretion, and loyalty. Even when public stories rise and fall, that private structure doesn't move. Because the real wealth isn't the mansion, the diamonds, or the headlines. It's the phone numbers, the invitations, the investors who never need to be seen. So when the world wonders how she does it, how the empire still glitters even when the spotlight fades, the answer is simple and unsettling. She doesn't just live off money, she lives off momentum. Momentum funded, guarded, and quietly renewed by the ones who benefit from keeping her name alive. As one old friend allegedly whispered, the secret of Meghan Markle isn't in what she earns, it's in who never lets her disappear. And that's the chilling truth. Deals may end, headlines may fade, but the quiet financing goes on. Because in Meghan Markle's world, power isn't about what you own. It's about who keeps your name afloat when the world stops watching.